Welcome everyone to another Performance Clinic, Digital Business Analytics, User Session, Query Language, and Power Dashboarding with Dynatrace. I believe it's the longest title I've ever had in one of my performance clinics, which means I'm expecting a lot today from John Kelly, or AKA Tech Shady. There we go. So John, today is a lot about dashboarding. I'm not sure if you can see it, but in my camera it says this is my dashboard back there. And it's a little small. Sweet, right?
I got you a believer now.
Yeah. So, folks, this is a live recording, but you may see us later on either YouTube or on Dynatrace University. If you happen to be live, feel free to put your questions into the question feature of GoToWebinar. I'll try to moderate. But without further ado, John, I want to push it over to you. You have a lot of great stuff to tell us. I know you did this session at Perform in Vegas earlier this year as part of a hot day, I believe. Did you?
That's correct. We did 4 hot day sessions, plus we also did a breakout as well.
So there's a lot of great stuff around digital business analytics. And John, I will just push it over to you now. I know you have a couple of slides, then go into the demo mode. I suggest once we go into the demo mode, we turn off our cameras so we see more from the screen. But as it is right now, we keep the camera on, and it's all up to you now.
Okay, and just to close the camera, just hit the little X in the upper corner, correct?
Exactly.
I'm very technical here, so I have it. So, yeah, thank you, Andy. And while we still have you on the line here, Andy,
sure.
You remember about a year ago, we did a performance clinic, right? And it was, I issued you a challenge. I said, hey, this is a dashboard, and I can create it. And remember, it was like under 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Right? And did I deliver?
Yeah, you did deliver, yeah.
I did, in under 3 minutes. So what we're going to do here is that a lot has changed, right? And if we look here at this part here is that I love creating dashboards, and I always say that no one ever says that, right? I have not yet met anyone that really likes to create dashboards, maybe except in this condition here for Dilbert, where he's creating the fake dashboard to figure out his boss. But the reason why is several when we look at actually kind of creating the different dashboards, and I'll get into those in a little bit. But when we kind of take a step back, is that 1 year ago when we looked at trying to create, we did a lot of manual efforts and so forth to create a different dashboard. And it was really kind of a single dashboard. And what has changed between then and now is that really the line between the dashboard and another internal web page has really faded. And that's because, technology, as we know, just keeps changing. And so we at Dynatrace, with what we do in terms of providing visibility out to our end user community, we're trying to stay as quickly as we can on that cutting edge of change, right? So in the past, kind of like what we had with the past seminar with Andy, was that, we just put data onto glass. We did it quickly. It was just a traditional dashboard, stood there in isolation. There was not a lot of interaction with it. And that was it, right? Now, what we're going to do here today is show you how we can take it further and get into more of a totally integrated set of dashboard, which I call more of a dashboard framework, and being able to show that not to take the 3 minutes, which was actually pretty impressive back then, but we're going to create many more dashboards, right? And go way beyond that in a very short amount of time as well. So that's the whole goal here. And to kind of back that up a little bit before I get into the demo, is that, so why don't we like creating different dashboards, right? And number one, it's really too difficult when you don't have the time, right? Because you saw where, again, I quickly blew out the dashboard in about 3 minutes, but in reality, you usually typically have requirements that come from different stakeholders of the application. You have to meet to get those requirements, do some research, provide a mock-up, have another meeting to review things, and then you go ahead and actually build a dashboard. And if it's somewhat complex, that could take a couple of days, right? And then every different line of business, from ops to your development manager to the executive staff, all need different types of dashboards with different views. And so you have to create a lot of them, right? So, and they're difficult, you got to create a lot. And ultimately, you need to have these dashboards be very interactive, not like kind of old school where you just put data on the glass, but you need to have answers. You need to be able to interact with them. You need to have facilitate some form of a drill down. Now, when we do deploy, digital business analytics, there are a lot of dashboards that do get deployed. But what we do is we designed it in a way to mimic the UI, because no one ever complains about the Dynatrace UI where there's too many screens, right? UI screens. And that's why things are kind of merging together. And so we make it very easy to be able to manage that. And so you don't have this whole spaghetti mess of different dashboards out there, all structured in a nice top-down format, facilitate drill down. A lot of the things that you see within the Dynatrace UI are now within the dashboards, and that's why that line is fading. And then also addressing things like your changing business needs or a shift in maturity, right? So how do I get visibility into new features, marketing campaigns? And we have you covered. I'll be able to show that fully in the demo. And then really kind of grouping everything into these different concepts, right? And that's what, this whole session is about, getting into some of the details behind it as well. But the one thing I always want to say is, remember, there's a tiny dashboard hugger deep inside of all of us, right? And my goal is to bring that tiny dashboard hugger out, embrace it, and go forward with it as well, right? So from Detroit, so I always have to have a Detroit reference. So what we're going to do, Andy, here is going to keep calm and get our dashboard on, and we're going to seize and capture the moment here. And so I'm getting ready to flip over into the actual demo because I want to spend the vast majority of my time in there interacting with the configurator, as well as deploying a lot of different dashboards out, okay? And so just before I hit into that, we deploy from a DevOps configurator it's just like a 3-tier type of deployment that we push out. So at the very top is going to be a tenant overview with a bunch of different dashboards linked to that to give things like CPU utilization and so forth. So kind of infrastructure availability type feeds into that overview dashboard. Then you can deploy many different application specific dashboards below the tenant. So I have, for example, Easy Travel, and I'll have a bunch of different dashboards related now and give me visibility into Easy Travel. And then the third level below that is what we call user journeys. You may have heard them as funnels or business transactions. And we refer to them as user journeys. And you can create many of those tied to an application. And the demo here, I'm actually going to create 3 journeys tied to one application to one tenant. And Andy, you're still there. That's going to be about 145 dashboards. We're going to nail it down here really quickly. So
sounds good. And
now,
before you start,
is the webcam off or?
Yeah, no, I will turn it off for you. But before I do, just a reminder, exactly, always stay hydrated. That's good. I like that you drink your tea. I hope it's tea. And also as a reminder, in case questions come in while John is doing the demo, use the question feature in GoToWebinar. I have it open on my left screen here, so I will moderate the questions. Okay, so now, John, I'm stopping both of our cameras. It's now full screen for everyone, and take us away.
All right, perfect. So this is my Dynatrace tenant, right? And since, Andy says, hey, you have a nickname of Shady, I don't think people really kind of believe you, so you really have to prove things out. I tend to agree. But anyhow, so let me do a quick refresh. Just to show you, I have no dashboards deployed, so we're good there. A couple of things I want to show really quickly before I actually get into the configurator is in your application, all right? If you want to click on applications in the side menu bar, for whatever application that I'm going to ultimately start to deploy journeys to, we want to make sure that each step of that journey, each user action is marked with a key user action, all right? And if you scroll down here to where it says my top 3 user actions, you click on full details, then you want to make sure that that's set appropriately, right? And in my environment, I've had a number of steps, and the steps here do make up my user journey. And my user journey is going to go through and actually book travel, okay? And so it doesn't have to be an e-commerce site. You could just be tracking users that are coming in to download some sort of marketing document, okay? Any type of user activity that has some form of a conversion, and not in the traditional e-commerce sense, but it works there as well, works fine with these different dashboards. It's simply just tracking my users going through performing a certain number of steps, and I want to make sure that they're able to do that, right? And if not, I want answers as to why, okay? And if you're not familiar on these, if you want to say, for example, this click on Newcastle, if I want to mark this a key user action, I simply click it. there's a button here that says mark as a key user action. And then I go back to my user actions and just repeat, okay? So after you're finished and you have all your different key user actions in play, you're pretty much good to go. Now, the other thing here is you also want to be able to come over here and define a couple different key user actions, okay? So I have this loading a page special offers, right? Which is a marketing campaign. And I want to provide dashboards and visibility around that too. So I'll mark that as a key user action. All right, and then this other thing like key press trip destination or even this booking payment, these are new features that I just pushed out recently. And I want to have dashboards to show me whether or not these new features are being utilized appropriately. Are they generating revenue? What is the overall user stat dealing with some of these new features? And so I marked those as key user actions as well. The other thing you want to do here is if you go into my application, step number 2, is it's a good idea, and this is not required, but if you can create some session properties, you can really start to do some cool things within the different user journeys, right? One of which is I have a revenue amount that I want to track, so when someone books travel, I want to capture that and then do some revenue dashboards and so forth. And so I went ahead and created a session property, which is called cart amount, which is going to track my revenue value. I also want, since it's very specific to this application, I want to be able to track users that are going to certain destinations. I have something called here member status, right? Users can log into my application. They're going to be platinum, gold, silver, so forth. These are very unique, right, to my application. But in your applications, you may have different session properties where you may want to pull out, document type for somebody that's trying to download a certain document, okay? Or however, and then you could apply that to the user journey. And I'll show that here in a little bit. Okay.
Hey, John, just
the last thing before we get in. Yes,
John,
sir.
I know we have a little delay, so when I interrupt you, sorry that it sometimes feels strange that I interrupt you so late while you're already talking. But an FYI, I will do another performance clinic with Klaus Enzenhofer in about 2 weeks, where I think he goes into more details on all these session properties and also how we can use calculated business metrics. Just an FYI for folks, there's another performance clinic coming up where we talk about calculated run metrics, which I think will go into that direction as well.
Sweet. God always advertise, Andy.
Yeah.
And I'll be on that one too, so that's a really good one. All right, and then the last thing you got to do here is create a token. All right. I'll actually show this, but I have to change my token later on. But I'll actually go to the BizOps configurator, and this actually, it's in. I'll make sure it's in the presentation that we post up. This is where we launch, and this is where the BizOps configurator lives today. Eventually, it's going to more than likely be in the Dynatrace store or somewhere like more in a formal Dynatrace repo. So when that is, we'll make sure we communicate that out and redirect from here. But if you go to this particular URL and launch the configurator, if you forgot all the stuff I just said in terms of the prerequisite, we list it out here pretty well, including Andy's favorite thing to apply for a sign up for a free trial. The token that you'd want to create only has to have these 4 permissions, right? So you need to have access to the event feed, read-write configuration, user sessions, all right? And then down here, the prereqs also lists things about creating session properties, key user actions. So it kind of really covers everything I just went before. An overview and FAQ are pretty well. I'm not going to go over here. You can hit those on your own. And so when you're ready to go, simply hit begin, all right? You want to go ahead and type in your tenant, all right? If it's managed, like for example here, make sure you actually fully specify the entire management string, okay? Here for me, I have a SaaS tenant. I'm gonna go ahead and select that. I'm gonna enter in my token, which everybody can see. So yes, Andy, I will change that after the session here. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit connect, all right? And just like we saw before, right, I have 0 dashboards, right? And just to make sure, double check. If I come back here, I can look in, it's going to show no dashboards. And so I'm ready to go. And I'm going to go through, again, as I mentioned before, I'm going to deploy a tenant, an application, and a couple journeys. And then we'll come on and take a look at things, all right? And so Andy, right, this is how quick things go now. I'm going to go ahead here, since I'm now connected, okay? I'm going to go ahead and deploy a tenant. I'm going to call it, just for now, BizOps, right? I'm going to hit upload. And in just a second, I've created about 9 or 10 dashboards, okay? And we'll see the tally at the end of this. I'm going to put an app overview, okay? We issue an API to pull out all your different apps. So I only have one, but you might have a long list. Just go ahead and select whichever app you want to deploy against. Give it a nice friendly name. And this is a web app. We also have support here for Citrix SAP. So we have a lot of cool things that we are having these different templates for. And then I want to compare this to the same app called Easy Travel. And my comparison, I want to do 2 hours and then look at the last time frame 7 days ago, same time frame 7 days ago, right? And the release validation, if you had like a blue-green A/B, simply pull up the other one, and here you can compare it. But I'm going to compare it to myself since I only just have one app. And Eddie hit upload, and now I've deployed up to about 25, close to 30 dashboards that quick, okay? All based upon what I set in. Now we're going to get cool here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to deploy a journey, all right? And this is built upon the application I happen to be in. I'm going to call this Book Travel. All right, so you're with me, Andy?
I am.
And this is actually an application here that's tracking revenue because I had that session property for it. But if it's a non-revenue, then just go down here and select that you don't want to look at some revenue or some value here. Or even like, for example, we have claims and they track a claim count. And so then they, instead of having revenue, they have claim count. And we transform that pretty cool, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I want to pull the KPI. I'm going to hit next, all right? And then over here, it's going to pull out any of the session properties that are double or longs, right? So I want to do card amount, which I know is my revenue number, give it a nice friendly name. And then I hit next. And this is really the cool part, right? Because now I can build my conversion funnel or my user journey, right? And what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and just change these headers here real quick. I'll do it here once, and then when I create my other funnels, I'm just going to leave it for the default names. But when they come in here from my user journey, they're going to hit the home page. They're going to log in, and then they're going to review travel that they selected. And even though I got uppercase D, I'll just leave it there. And they're going to enter in payment. Okay. You still with me here, Andy? And then I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. All right. Now that I have, these are just headers that are going to show up. And just because I'm at ADD, I'll go ahead and fix this one here real quick. These are the headers that will show up now in my dashboard. And now I'm just going to drag the actual key user action that we showed and we defined before on top of each one of these. All right, so here's my login step, Andy. When they review, it's this particular page load that signifies the review. And then when I hit next on payment, that means they've entered the payment amount. And when I hit finish, that means they've actually booked the travel, okay? That's it. Now below here, if you notice, when I drop these particular user actions in here, we start to build out this clause here. So if you need to change that for any reason, maybe, for example, Andy, your review has some other characters around it. This is like some sort of SHR column has something going on. I could hit the pencil icon. I can change the equals to a starts with, and then just put a wildcard or something on here, or just get rid of the rest of it. Or I can do a like, right? Mm-hmm. Or if I have, you know, basically, this is another entry point. If I were to take this and drop this on top of here, mm-hmm. right, it'll end up or in the steps together. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So now I have 2 entry points, and I can do that for any step. I'm going to say it's either this step or this step makes that entry point. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And then I'll come down here, and this, I'll play with this stuff in a little bit here, but this allows me to add filters onto my particular user journey. I'm going to come back and add one for my Platinum users and for US, but I'll just hit next here for time's sake. And then just like we did at the app level, now here at the user journey level, I can do A/B type comparison testing, canary testing, right? So I've specified this is my first and last step. I have a card amount and a shift 7 days. And yes, you know, I have a particular campaign here that I can go down and say that I want to build some dashboards around special offers, and I'm going to call it special offers. And I do have a new feature that we deployed. It's this actual booking payment, and I'll go ahead and give it a name of quick payment. And then now, Andy, I'm going to go ahead and click upload, and it went ahead and created the user journey and a whole bunch of dashboards. So I'm probably up to close to about 65 or so. Okay.
So John,
Now, one thing I want to do.
can I quickly interrupt here because I have a question? I kind of like reiterating what
Yes,
I
sir.
just saw for people that have seen this the first time, just as me. But I think what happens here, what you actually show with the BizOps configurator, which is a tool that it seems Lucas Hogger and you guys have built, is also the power of the Dynatrace APIs when it comes to dashboarding, when it comes to pulling out configuration elements, because you basically build a wizard on top of the API in Dynatrace to make it very easy to build business relevant dashboards for a particular app, for a particular conversion funnel. I really like the drag and drop. I mean, this is stuff we've talked about back in the days with AppMon when we wanted to do the same kind of things with the drag and drop capability.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're really doing, and I think this is the great power of this, you build this into your BizOps configurator. You said earlier, this capability, this BizOps configurator may move over as part of the true Dynatrace offering into the App Store. But it's still, everything lives on GitHub here, what you guys built. That means everybody can look at this and see which kind of APIs you're using, how to create these dashboards, how you read out the data. Because where I see this in my world, when I talk a lot to folks around DevOps, around autonomous cloud enablement, is how can we automate the generation of these dashboards or the update of these dashboards as part of the delivery pipeline. So when you deploy a new feature, as part of my pipeline, I not only want to deploy that code, but I automatically want to create the right metrics and the dashboards, and then I want to get a link to the dashboard, maybe from my Jenkins or maybe from my Captain deployment. Yep. So this is awesome. This is really, really fantastic.
Yeah, and this whole area, I mean, I have a link here that can take into the app view. So very similar, Andy, what you're mentioning, you have the ability to, build it in. A couple of things that I'm working on moving forward is to, all you have to do technically when I get this working is define a conversion goal. And to me, it's, click on finish, okay, within that particular screen. And then I can actually go in via the API. I can figure out, okay, show me all the entry points. And then I can say, okay, what is the next most common step if you select this entry point? What is the most common step 2? And then find out step 3. And just keep working my way all the way down until I hit that conversion goal. And then I have, hey, this is a recommended click path. This is your most common click path through your app. Do you want me to create a funnel? And then we can also just automate that. So instead, what I can do now is say, here's a tenant. I have 10 apps. So go out and deploy all 10 apps automatically, and then give me the recommended click path. Just go ahead and deploy that as well, right? And then what you have there is mass automation without having to go through, do a lot of drag and drop, but you can go back and edit and modify that, right? Mm-hmm. And so at any point here, to kind of feed into that, if I want to edit things, right, I can edit my app overview here. We also have something, and I'll show this a little bit, is like a forecast. I can update the forecast, and I'll do that for my application layer, right? And this is just a traffic factor, and we're going to add some more parameters where you can adjust and fine tune the actual forecasting model. But I'm just going to say that I anticipate 100% the same traffic next week. And so if we have like a, Cyber Monday, you may want to bump this up to like 150 if you perceive that you're going to have a 50% increase in traffic for next week, right? And I'll just go ahead and say, okay, here. I'll list out the one journey that I deployed, and then I'm going to go ahead here and I want to update its forecast, because that's where I see things like the revenue and the user journey steps, and I want to be able to understand that a little bit more, okay? Now, really quickly, what I'm going to do, and I'll spare some of the commentary, but I'm going to go ahead and actually add 2 more journeys just real quick, all right? This one's going to be my platinum bookings, all right? And just say, for example, I didn't show this the first time, if your actual user journey spans across multiple apps, right? And some of our customers, and hopefully some of you guys are on, I do thank you so much for being my QA sites. You all know who you are. I can't really mention your names, but I do thank you so much. And some of those customers had very complex environments where they would go across multiple apps as they're building out this big user journey. And if that's the case, we support that. You're simply going to click here, and then you go down and just multi-select all the different applications that meet that condition, okay? I'll leave it off now because I just have a very simple single app. And I'm going to go ahead and hit next. I do want to use revenue in this particular user journey as well, okay? And I'm going to actually not rename the steps, but I'll just leave them as the default labels here just for time. And I'll drag each one of these particular user actions over. And here's my payment, and then here's my finish, and then I'm going to hit next. All right, so this is my platinum. So I have different user session properties, and I showed you destination. I also have something called member status. And so now, since you created a session property for that, I'm going to pull that up here. We'll interrogate your values because I have platinum, gold, silver. Someone else may have titanium and other kind of things. We'll interrogate that. We'll figure out what you're using, and we'll list them out here for you. And that's the power of using the API to pull this through. And so I'm going to actually build a particular filter clause onto my user journey and all the supporting dashboards that support that, and have this particular filter that's going to be placed on it. This is also free format, so you could actually write anything in here. And you could say, well, and duration is greater than like 10 or something like that. You can put any type of filter that you want to put in place. That's cool, right, to do that. And then for here, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead, and I'm not going to go ahead and do the campaign and all that kind of good stuff. I'll just do a quick comparison, and then I will click upload. And then I want to do one more journey, and then we'll get into actually showing you the data, right? So if I hit return out of here, I'm going to go ahead and deploy journey. And this one's going to be my USA bookings. All right, I'm going to hit next. Same thing here, right? I'm going to go ahead and pull out my revenue, money, a monetary amount. All right, it's a 5-step funnel, and you could add up to 10 or shrink this down to 3 as you need to. So then I'm just going to go ahead and drop each of these different steps over here like we did before. Pretty straightforward. Click next on payment, and I'm going to hit finish here, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Now the filter I'm going to place in here is United States. So this actually interrogates all the countries that it's seen, right? So these are, I'm running a lot of synthetic tests from these locations. That's why it's showing up. I'm just going to go ahead and say United States. Click next, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it, the friendly name for comparison. First step is loading page, and then I'm going to click upload. Okay, and I'm done. Right. So I did a lot of talking by creating the tenant, the app, and then 3 journeys. All right, and I now have, all right, about 145 dashboards that I created. So Andy, that's a lot more efficient than the other one we did in 3 minutes, huh?
That's it. I mean, it's a lot of dashboard. Now the question is, how can you find the right dashboard? This looks like a filter by something up there. What's the deal with this?
Andy, man, you're like the perfect setup. We're like Laurel and Hardy. I'm not sure who's who, but I'll be the straight guy for this one. Perfect. Yeah. So one of the things I mentioned before is that, and this is really important, is that you could get dashboard explosion, right? So I had maybe have to add 10 more apps and then a couple of journeys for each one of those. And it's like, well, Shady, you're just killing me with all these dashboards, right? And that's why, and this is actually, to point this out, this is in version 190, okay? This is my dev tenant. All the dashboards today are built with tagging automatically put in place, right? If you're less than 190, we're gonna strip it out as we deploy them to your tenant, okay? And so when you're up in 190 now, I can do things where I can say search for a tag, because every dashboard is built and we have all of them marked as easy travel. So if you have Andy easy travel, maybe all these other apps, you can go ahead and actually select that, and it's going to get you a list of just the easy travel specific dashboards. And then I'm actually really only interested in, say for example, my revenue dashboards. And then I want to look at here the name, which would be my platinum, right? And so very quickly now, I just popped a couple tags. I mean, technically you don't even need easy travel. But if I just say revenue and my platinum or my USA or whatever, and then now I'm dealing with those particular views, right? And then I can simply click in here and launch into my platinum booking overview for revenue. And that dashboard is been automatically transformed, and I can see it here pretty cool. All right.
That's pretty awesome.
And so that's kind of one way, is definitely use the tagging. I was kind of at first wasn't a fan of that. I wanted to do more folders, but now that I've played around with it, and then every dashboard you view, you can see which tags are automatically deployed. You can edit this and add, any additional tags that you want. And, this is not, every dashboard that we deploy here, which is a lot, you may say, I really don't care. All I really care about is like, hey, how are you doing this risk revenue? What is it, right? Because over the past 2 hours, I see risk revenue for my platinum users is 47,000, and it's actually a decrease of 24% from the previous 2 hours, which is actually good, right? And so if you click on that particular tile, we will actually show you how we automatically transform and built this particular query, right? These are all the different steps that I dragged over. Doing something like this Andy, it just takes a lot of time, right? And that's why in the previous session, I didn't even look at anything USQL. I simply did out of the box tiles, because trying to do this manually, especially on a webinar with a whole bunch of people looking, is brutal, right? And so we did automatically, right? But I already knew, because I remember I selected the session property card amount in that business ops configurator, right? And I already knew that I was building a user journey and sum up revenue for this application. And we already put the platinum filter in there because I added that in. And so it's going to show up in all these different dashboards, and this just gets created out. Now you may say, okay, cool. I want just this one tile, okay? And so you can copy that particular query, or the other thing what you can do here is you can just come over to the dashboard, and you may have your favorite dashboard as well. You could, edit this and remove certain tiles, and then come over here and just go ahead and clone it, right? And you could clone this dashboard, and then now, you can save it, or actually even save different tiles, right? So if this risk revenue is one that I'm really interested in, then instead of copying the query, I can clone this to a dashboard. And this is, Andy, where I can pull up maybe one of my favorite dashboards that you created, right? And then just add that tile into that dashboard, and you don't have to worry about, trying to build this query out. And so we have a lot of our customers will take all the dashboards that are deployed and just run it automatically. Others will just take bits and pieces. It's up to you. And the one thing that we're also doing, Andy, coming up here, and we didn't want to push this new change until this session was over, is that we're also going to have something called more of a BizOps Lite. Instead of having all these deep analytic type dashboards, we'll just deploy like a couple overviews, like a executive overview, things like that. And so that's going to come down to maybe about 10 dashboards that you can quickly deploy and kind of walk your way and ease your way into things. Okay.
Hey, quick question here. Quick question here, because the question just came in from one of the listeners. And as a reminder, people please use the question feature and go to webinar in case you have questions. If you look at the dashboard that you just had opened, or maybe you want to go to another one, just pick up one of the dashboards you want to open. There's a couple of questions that just came in. So it seems you have, oh, that's a conversion funnel now. Awesome. Yeah. So the one that came in on the previous one is, it seems like some of your headers had links to other dashboards.
Yes.
And when new dashboards get created, they obviously get a unique ID. How do you do these links? So when you create a new dashboard, you update the links by the created ID of the previous dashboard, or is there another option? How does this work?
Yeah, we maintain the links. So in the configurator, okay, for example, and let me back out here. I'm going to go all the way up to the high level, which is my tenant overview. All right. And I can go down here to say last 6 hours, right? Or last 2 hours. You can change your time frame as you need to. Below here, there's a series of dashboards that got created, right? So this is the very first thing I did, is I said, I want to create a tenant. I called it BizOps, and I dropped down. And then, so I have all these links here. By just knowing that this is the first dashboard in the set, every one of these dashboards, I automatically know I need a link back to this for you here, right? So if I look at, for example, my CPU utilization, it's a really cool dashboard, right? Showing me a lot of good things in terms of my CPU usage. I get the number as a chart right next to it, CPU idle and so forth. Over here, there's actually a link that if I hit it, it's going to return it. And we auto-configure those automatically, right? And if I look at the actual dashboard that's named, so we have this naming convention. So this, is kind of, it's a little bit, it indicates that this is my tenant, my highest level dashboard. right? And then if I went down, for example, into my CPU utilization dashboard, right, it's getting different number here and so forth, but it knows it attaches back. So by how we automatically name these, and these dashboard IDs are generated when we create it. I'll go a little bit deeper here, just because I have you here, Andy. I have a GitHub repository, and this is where I have about 95 or so, and there's one for SAP, one for Citrix. So we have about 150 and growing, all these different dashboard templates. And just to give you an example, that CPU utilization dashboard that we're looking at here, right? So I created that in my JSON, and I have actually an ID because this is kind of what got generated when I created and started to play around building this dashboard out, right? And you don't need to know, where this repository is, the configurator does, right? But it pulled that dashboard up, and then what the configurator did here is it actually renamed the ID and launched it out. So we know how to link things back together because we're controlling the actual IDs, and we know the relationship with them that we're building it through. So long story, but it's great.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
And then whenever you do an update, Andy, if I do an update to the tenant, to the app, to the journey, it's just going to override those, right? So if you ever do something where you add new tiles into one of the stocks set here, I've definitely clone it, and then you can pin it back later if you need to, because if you do an update, it's just going to do a particular refresh, okay? Now, as we go through here, I'll go back to full screen, and now this is my tenant overview, right? I don't necessarily have any live activity. If I did, it show up here, but then I can see, compare all the apps from an active session point of view, so I can see what is my most active session app, okay, as well as which session or which app has the highest duration, and so forth. And my nice little honeycomb here to show all the different health indicators for my apps. Across the middle here, I have my duration visually complete speed index over time. This is for everything coming into the tenant. So all the one agents, everything that's reporting through, that's pulling DEM data, I'm now showing it here for every single app. Down below, I have the same tiles, but I'm just looking at the 90th percentile. If you notice a lot with these USQL tiles, I can see that, hey, my 90th percentile for duration is 3.8 seconds, and it's a 0.3% increase in the previous 2 hours. So just a little slight bump, but nothing to worry about. And then here to the left, I have my user sat count. So for the entire tenant, the vast majority of my users are satisfied, somewhat tolerated, and just a handful or so that are actually frustrated. Now, as I deploy more apps, we'll keep building an entire link down here. So if I deploy app 2, app 3, and 4, you'll see links for each one that shows up below. In my demo here, I just deployed one app. So if I click it here, I'll see a very similar type of layout now at the app overview. But every tile here, Andy, is filtered by the easy travel because that's the app I selected on my dropdown, right? So I can see my user behavior, JavaScript errors, all the kind of nice, cool out-of-the-box tiles all filtered automatically for me on my application. And I got a return here, which will take me to the tenant overview if I need to go back, right? And it's consistent throughout all the different dashboards. A little different visualization, looking at all the percentiles now for duration, visually complete speed index. Same type of tiles down here, but now these tiles are all filtered by that application, right? So I'm looking at 90th percentile now just for easy travel. And then my user sats are all just for easy travel, all right? And below here, we got some really cool things where if I wanted to look at some of my MDA links, so this actually points to certain areas in the product, I can look at maybe the service flow. I actually clicked on the wrong thing here, the service flow for that particular application, right? And I'll just kind of list it out here, and I'm into the Dynatrace product. If I hit the computer icon here, it takes me back to that same dashboard I left, right? So very easy to be able to leverage some of those without having to go hunt and find and filter those as well. Now, we did a forecast for the application. And so if I click on the actual forecast itself, then this is something we generated, and we did it at 100%. And so now I can see, for example, and I can go through a lot of these, but just look at my average action duration. And based upon the trends here, what we're predicting is that we're going to drop down, roughly about 20 milliseconds or so in terms of overall response time, right? Error count is actually, we're projecting that it's going to pull up. And what we do here is we take the initial API call, and for example here, satisfied user. So look at for last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And so we issue an API call for each one of those. And then there's a form that we go through here and crunch up to get what the forecast would look like. All right, and so that's, again, by simply when I did an update forecast and I said, okay, this dashboard got dynamically created for me. So pretty cool stuff there, right, to be able to look at that. And I'll show a revenue forecast here in a few minutes as well. One thing here, I want to show the release validation. So if you remember, Andy, I said that I want to look at a 2-hour time frame. I want to compare the same app and I want to shift it by 7 days. And so we automatically built this out for you, right? So all these, my satisfied users in the last 2 hours, all right, is 1369. Same time period 7 days ago, so we've already built it into the time filter, it's 1765. If I want to adjust this, I simply go back in the configure, hit edit, and just put in a different comparison, or change the app to a different app. And then I can do like a kind of a blue-green comparison or canary comparison as well here within the comparison dashboard, right? My magic link will take me back to the journey overview or the application overview here, right? And then now these are the 3 journeys I created. And so let's take a look here. I'm just gonna look at the high level for my USA bookings, okay? And I'll get into this dashboard here more, but all my bookings that originated from users based in the US, they're converting at 26%, all right? Now I'm gonna do the same for my platinum users, and then I'll get into these dashboards a little bit more here, is my platinum users are converting at 24%, okay? And the last one, and I'll spend a little bit more time here, is in my book travel. So this is looking at all users, whether they're platinum or not, where they're coming from, and we're converting at about a 19.9% rate. So pretty cool that we can, massage that and add those different views. Now, this tells me that, where's my biggest drop off, right? I can start to look at them in more detail. I can tell you and explain this a little bit more and show it to you. The middle tier is really kind of showing my user experience, right? So I want to quickly know that with these users that are going through this journey, do I have a user experience problem? All my revenue is generated by users that are tolerated or satisfied. Very little lost revenue. I mean, it's just probably a little blip is from somebody that was frustrated. Yeah, again, my conversions as well as my abandons, they all seem to be good. So quickly by looking at these tiles, I can say my user set looks pretty good. We're making money and we're converting and so forth. Now these different KPIs here, kind of sheds a little bit more light, right? In the last 2 hours, I've had 1,930 users that started the user journey. We generated 140,000 in revenue, of which 111,000 is at risk, right? And we looked at that query before. This is, again, somebody had booked travel, but their user satisfaction wasn't satisfied. It was other, okay? Lost revenue is, Andy, where they went through this particular user journey and probably abandoned, within the review or payment step. And how much was lost? 1,300. Now, if I did not select revenue in the configurator, this dashboard would look a lot different. You wouldn't see in these revenue tiles, right? So that's why I have like 95 different templates. The configurator is going to know that, okay, I got to build this overview without revenue, and it'll build it. And then I'm not going to put a link down here for my revenue overview or revenue compare and things like that, right? So smart enough to know that. And then some of these areas here, right, is really kind of cool because it tracks, number of errors, rages, and so forth. We have non-engaged, which is, I look at, hey, Andy, if you have a session that spent more than 3 minutes into your app, which is my app is Easy Travel, and they have less than 10 user actions, there's an engagement issue because they should be in and out under 3 minutes. And if they're doing minimal amount of actions and staying for a long time, something's wrong, right? And we can identify that as well. Now, if you do see any one of these, you can do a deeper analysis here. I'll hold off on that for right now. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is show you something here really cool, right? I have my book travel user journey, all right? And just a quick time check, Andy, how are we looking on time here?
Yeah, we got a couple of questions that came in, and I want to make sure we have time for that. So if we can wrap it up in the next 5 minutes, then we have enough time for answering the questions.
I'll do it, and I'll try not to talk too fast, but I want to get this because this is a really important part, right? And so now I took that same user journey, that funnel look that you saw on the previous screen, and I'm laying it out here. So I had 1,917 users hit the home page and 384 hit finish. Right below, I can see the number of users that abandoned and didn't go to the next step. And I could analyze, and this is kind of, Andy, the question came up before, is that, hey, it looks like some of those are links we can click it. Absolutely, right? because if I had 145 users exit the homepage, I need answers, right? And that was one of my big claims up front is like, hey, Dynatrace, we're not just putting data on glass, we give you answers. I want answers. How you do that, right? Right below, I can see that, you know, about 1.9, almost 2-second average response time for a homepage. It's pretty good. No errors. Most, if not all, my users are satisfied. So what is the issue? If I click the home step here, and Andy, hold on, make sure you're seated here. This is actually a super, super cool dashboard, right? And it's what I call my forensic. So this is like CSI crime stuff, like where we turn out the lights and we put that liquid up and I can see all the blood stains everywhere. Or, you know, basically, you know, the fingerprint analysis where they put this crazy glue in a microwave. I'm not sure whoever figured that out, but that's crazy stuff. This is the level of detail we're getting to, because the top row is telling me these are all the sessions that continue to log in the next step, and these are all the characteristics about that, all the different KPIs. The bottom one is all the sessions that exited, right? So we split it. Look here, very cleanly, right? Forget about this browser because everything I do is synthetic. So if this were your environment, you'd show a nice breakdown. You could see that maybe a certain version of a browser is, people are exiting at a higher rate. But what this tells me quickly is that 100% of my users exited all came from China. And Andy, what is the reason why? If I scroll over here, can you see what jumps out as there was a big disparity? Is the duration. The users that continued had a duration of 1.4 seconds. The users that exited had a duration of 55 seconds, okay? And I know, and I can go down and I could look here all the way over to, you know, DOM interactive, right? Errors, you know, are errors affecting it? And maybe see every single user has a lot of errors, okay? And we look at engagement and rage. So this usability breakdown. If I see a lot of rage clicks, then that's something that I can now click here, isolate, and do some session replay. But now if I wanted to isolate these users that came from China, I click on this link, okay, and it's going to take me now, show me the query, right? So there's all the users that, you know, entered my user journey. And remember, Andy, when we actually said there was 2 steps that we created here, right? That was part of either hitting the home page or the special offers, right? And they did not hit login, which was the second step. Here they are, okay? And I can see each one. I can now click here, Andy, and I can expose the top user, which again, we know 100% came from China, right? And I can see that they took 1 minute, 5 seconds to load the page. It's marked as frustrated. They didn't do anything else. They left, okay? And so that's kind of, you know, definitely the value add that I see, you know, within answers is that I know to solve this problem because 100% of my users that are exiting at that step all come from China. And I want to move a CDN closer to the China users and so forth. All right, I know we need to get into some Q&A, but I just want to show one thing really quick is that, hey, I could have an executive overview. So maybe this, all the other stuff is cool. This is all I want to look at, and I really want to track conversions. So we simulate kind of a tabbing feature there. And now you can have all your main KPIs from a business perspective. And with tagging and so forth, you can get this dashboard very quickly. Last one I want to show before we go into Q&A, and Andy, I could be doing this thing all day, is, and I think this is actually really, really cool, it's a new feature utilization, right? If you remember when I built that first user journey, I said, hey, this quick payment was a new feature that we're pushing through. The top half here looks at all the sessions, and I have 1,551 of them that interacted with this new feature, and I had 378 sessions that did not. And the users that interacted with it generated revenue, the ones that did not, right? And so if I'm looking here as a development manager to know that, is this new feature generating revenue versus those that don't, bingo, right? We said it. And then also, how many users were frustrated interacting with the new feature? 2. And look, we had 125 sessions that were frustrated that did not. And so from a user stat, this is actually really impressive. From my revenue, really impressive. Then I can now start to say as a development manager, that was a great new feature. Quick payment is actually working and doing what we're supposed to do, okay? So, like I said, Andy, man, I could go on here for several hours. Definitely want to tell everyone that it's available today to use the configurator to deploy this. Everything converts, whether or not you have revenue, whatever your user journey is, it just flat out works fine. So let's flip it over to some Q&A, and we'll take it home from there.
Sounds good. Hey, John, do me a favor, turn back on your camera because I think it's time to bring our faces back. I'm sure you figured it out. It's a little
Okay.
somewhere. Well, first of all, I want to quickly recap what you've shown is a great way to demonstrate how we can automate the creation of meaningful business and diagnostics dashboards that are great for biz DevOps, whether you do it through your BizOps configurator, which the way I see it will more and more of this capability will move closer into the product anyway, because it just makes a lot of sense, because you're building something that our customers are demanding, and kind of you built an app on top of our API, and then we are moving this into the product just as our customers and partners can do. So this is awesome. A couple of questions that came in, and I think some of them may go, I'm not sure if you can answer them, or we need to bring it to product management. Oh yeah, and thanks for bringing that up. There's a lot of additional resources in case people want to know more about this and other events that we do and material. So the question is, when you're looking at your BizOps generator, is there an overview of all the dashboards? Exactly. Are you messing around with my slide? Is there?
Sure, I am.
It's okay. Is there an overview of all the dashboards that you're creating and what they do? I know that you have in the slide deck the screenshots, but is there an overview of the dashboards and their meaning?
Right. And so a little bit behind on that, but by next week I'll have a complete doc set out, right? So each of the different dashboards, we didn't have time to go into all of them. I listed and show a screenshot of each one. Most of them are pretty simple. I mean, remember utilization, you can kind of figure out what it is, but some of them get a little bit kind of gnarly and complex. And so for each one of these, I'll have a doc set that says, what type of data am I seeing? What is available for me to drill down to at a next level, right? And so you'll see that, this will come through. So this will, by end of next week, we'll have a complete doc set out. And if you go back to the configurator here, okay, this is where there'll be more documentation. Now, there's the overview section here, kind of walks you through like how you use the configurator. Kind of tells you high level about the dashboard IDs and all that good stuff. So there's some good information here, but doesn't tell you individually like, hey, this executive overview, what is this dashboard telling me? That will be by the end of this week, and they'll be posted up here as well.
Awesome. Perfect. The next question is, now you're creating a lot of dashboards in a short time using the API. Have you built anything into the BizOps configurator to overcome the API limitation, the rate limiting on Dynatrace SaaS? Because we are limited to.
Oh, excellent.
Right?
Question. Yeah, so you can use the PAT here, right? And so I knew that I didn't need it because I talk too much and I don't deploy fast enough. And I'll probably have to change this particular PAT as well. But yes, you can do that, and then that'll affect the throttling. All right. So we actually, for our hot day sessions, we had, I think, 30 users. We used the PAT, so we had 30 concurrent all at the same time, and we were cool.
Okay, so that means.
But yeah, definitely here, because if you're going through.
So can you quickly explain what the GitHub PAT is?
Right. This is just more of a personal token that allows you to, go a little bit beyond the limitation of how many API calls you can make from a particular IP address to GitHub. Okay. So for example, if I were to connect here, right, I have like up to, it's actually 150 dashboards here. And if I were to go ahead and actually issue a delete, Andy, and I'll do this because I'm confident I can rebuild this quickly, it's going to go through and it's issuing all the API calls to do the delete and so forth. And then I'll probably get like a rate limit that will kick in. Now, in our BizOps configurator, we will park you for a little bit if you hit that and then retry. And so this is where I hit my rate limit exceeded. And so it's just going to go into a little timeout here to try and it'll eventually clean them up. But if I actually had the first part where I put in that personal token, that PAT, then that gives me a higher rate limit, right? So that's probably where the question's coming from, is that, how do we get around this type of
it was more about it was more about the rate limit on the Dynatrace API, not the Git API, but we're talking about the Dynatrace API, right? If you are hitting the Dynatrace API very frequently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so let me look into that one, Andy. I'll unfortunately have to get back to it. I don't know what that rate limit is set to with the Dynatrace. Yeah, because you're using all the Dynatrace API calls. We're loading dashboards up. We're using a lot of USQL type queries that we build, like the forecasting dashboards with and so forth. Let me find out, because yeah, in that particular hot day session, each user had their own tenant, so they were kind of, you know, limited to just running, you know, certain apps. But if you kind of go hog wild, I can see where that might be an issue. Let me find out what that limit is.
Yeah. Oh, the limit, I think that the limit on SaaS is 50, but the question is there anything built in to kind of retry? I would assume, you know, Lucas, whoever built this, is probably built in some retry after a while. So I assume that's the question here. The other question.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually true, Andy, because just real quick before I go there, yes, that is supported. So it'll park us a little bit, because sometimes when you go through, like if you deploy here, and if you do it quick enough, all right, and I'll do this real fast here, just deploy another tenant, then I click this link here, and I may click it too quick, and you may see like no data, because we're building a lot of different dashboards there. And depending upon that API, we may be parking for a minute while we kind of build up some more time to deploy that. So yes, I'm not seeing that before where I've deployed, especially a journey, that I go click on a certain journey and I'm just waiting for maybe 10, 15 seconds to get the reset, and then I'm good to go. But we handle it within the configurator. So thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of questions on the BizOps configurator, and I think the best way probably to answer them is if people get in touch with you eventually, because because we're running at the time limit. So I guess you have your john.kelly@Dynatrace, or do you have an email? Just go to the BizOps configurator, or any way people can get a hold of you, and then they can chat with you about it. One question though that I want to quickly highlight, one of the first one that came in from Tim, is there a limit of applications that can be listed below the tenant overview? We have dozens of apps. And I think in the tenant
yeah, right now there shouldn't be a limit on that. I can double check. Right, I do know that right now we have a limit of when I deploy an application, all right, and I probably can show it within the screen here. You're going to get a view similar to this, but on the application level. Right now, this is technically one markdown tile that shows below here, and there's a limit of about 10 before we blow up the length of what the markdown tile can be. We've already addressed that. We obviously didn't want to push that in before this session. But shortly after this, each individual application will have its own markdown tile. So there'll be no limit to the number of applications that you can add. Right. For right now, if you prior to us doing a push, probably later today or tomorrow, you're kind of limited to about 10 apps, and then under the apps about 10 journeys per app. But that limitation will be removed, because then we're not going to blow up the size of a markdown tile for the links.
Cool. Also, another one that I want to quickly highlight, but this may have to go to product management, especially what you show right here. There's a lot of purple on black, right? Black background, purple color, and the question is, it's not everybody has. Some people have challenges in differentiating these colors. So the question is there any option to change the colors? I know you can do this obviously on the charts that you are creating, but I think the question goes more to the out-of-the-box tiles. You use some of those that use the purple. The purple is the color for RAM data, right? I think that's we try to use default colors for different layers of the stack, and purple is RAM. But I can definitely, I'm not sure if you can answer that. I don't think there's a way to change the default color for RAM right now. Something.
It's coming. I don't want to put a date out, because I know it's on the roadmap. And it's coming hopefully relatively soon. I know that within custom charting, like these are all custom charts, not USQL.
Yeah, you can do
whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
Right. And then so the same thing is going to show up here, so you don't see all these, the different shades of purple and so forth. So it's coming. And then even the tile below here with this little number here will show whatever color you choose. So
perfect.
So stay tuned.
Yeah. So John, we are at the top of the hour. What I want to kind of take away from this is there's so many people that I work with in the DevOps space that wanted to automate monitoring as a self-service, provide monitoring as provide dashboards as a self-service, and also dashboards that are automatically created through the pipeline. And I believe this is what you show here is how we can automatically create these dashboards. You create a large number of it. I wonder if the next step should be something like I want to phrase a question and then a dashboard gets temporarily created for me and then it can be disposed again. So maybe using the Davis assistant also for this to say I have an app and I have some configuration that in the back end that tells me what is important for me in the app, and then I just get the data on demand in a dashboard format maybe, then I don't even need to store it anymore. But I mean, this is just really phenomenal what's possible here.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's what we're working on. And Davis is going to have an open API, so you can ingest USQL queries, so you can really teach a business.
Yeah.
And so what we're going to do is when that's available, which I heard sometime probably mid to late summer, when we create these BizOps dashboards, then we'll feed all these queries. So then Davis is going to know what risk revenue is, what's lost revenue. It's going to know all these business things about your application. And then to your extent, Andy, hey, Davis, create me a dashboard around revenue.
Yeah.
And we should be able to do that, no problem.
What I want, right, in my world right now, when we talk about SLIs and SLOs, I say, here's my service, here are my 20 metrics that are important for me, these are my SLOs. So Davis, tell me, how are my SLOs holding up in the last, since we did the last deployment? And that's what we're implementing with Captain and the quality gates right now. And it's great to see that even more of this is coming into the core product, where it can get this data through a self-service. Either give me the dashboard, or Davis, just give me the data through chat or something like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Awesome.
Hey, and I know we're over time here, but I just want to say one last thing. These dashboards aren't just all me and my crazy lab here, so I do want to give a credit to Lucas Hocker. He's done a bang-up job. I really do a lot of content. He wrote the app and does all the transformations, so he's just done an incredible job there. Jason Ostrowski, another guy here who's kind of the guy I pick his brain about content and all that kind of stuff as well. So I just want to kind of call those two guys out because they've been a tremendous help, part of this extended digital business analytic team. I do appreciate their help.
Yeah, thank you. Well, with that, thanks to you though, and I'm pretty sure I have you back in a couple of months with the next update on your journey, where you probably create even more dashboards in even shorter time and impress us even more. And we'll see if
definitely more templates coming, right? You saw the BizOps, but I kind of did give you a peek at Citrix SAP. So we can have different sessions to like, hey, how to do the SAP stuff, Citrix and other things. So we keep growing the list. We're 150 templates strong and many more to come.
Very cool. All right. Thank you so much, folks. The thing has been recorded. We will load it up to YouTube soon, also to Dynatrace University, and the slide deck will also be uploaded to the university folder. So thank you. And don't forget, wash your hands these days. Exactly. See ya. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.